Welcome to An Audible. My name is Jeremy Weiland, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jamie Leastman. On this podcast, we discuss the weird, beautiful channeled messages found in the long tradition of contact with the Confederation of Planets in service to the one infinite creator. These messages articulate a philosophy of spiritual evolution, popularly known as the Law of One. Many of these messages are available to listen to on our sister podcast, Living Love and Light, still available on all platforms. Jamie and I will try to provide analysis and commentary on the philosophy described in these messages, identifying the common themes and grappling with the application of this information to our human lives. However, we are not gurus or experts of any kind, so please evaluate our remarks in light of our shortcomings and use your own best judgment. Thanks for joining us, and Jamie, thanks for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a sunny day in Minneapolis, and I got my hot tea, and I'm excited to talk about relationships.
Oh yeah. This is it's a love line, the next generation, right?
It is. It's
No, it's not
something
going
that
to
I
get that
actually
weird.
have a lot of practical experience
Yeah.
in practice.
I was
You know?
wondering today, Jamie, like how typical do you think we are of seekers? Like just the general population of Law of One seekers. Like, are we typical people who would be in a relationship? Like, I don't know. It's
Oh
hard to
gosh,
say,
that's a
right?
good question. It is super hard to say.
But I guess all we can do is we didn't get a lot of guests. Like Jamie and I talked about potentially doing short segments where we would interview our spouses and have the audience, hear all the dirt on us. But
Yeah.
my spouse wasn't particularly interested in that. Jamie's was more willing to go along, but we just decided to scratch it. We'll just talk from the
Yeah.
heart like we normally do.
Yeah. I think he would be interested though if I prepared him a little bit more, or like we talked about some things, cuz my husband is very different from me
Yeah.
in that he's a really really good listener. I'm not a terrible listener, but not as good as he is, and I don't know. It's it's fun when you have different skills and a challenge sometimes. So,
Absolutely, and I'm doing a lot of work recently on the Confederation's philosophy and approach to communication. So I hope we can address that. If we don't address it today, we can address it on a future episode. Because it's getting really, really juicy what I'm finding and putting together. I'm writing a whole essay
nice.
on it. This is like my third attempt at writing this essay. It's hard to like sometimes parse the way that the Confederation like puts ideas together and they jump around and it's like, okay, well, what's going on here, right? What am I
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at? So breaking it down has yielded a lot of insight, as has going through the pre-raw channelings from LL Research, like really seeing connections that I hadn't before. So
Yeah,
yeah,
communication is everything.
and it's a big
In
issue.
channeling, in relationships, with
Yep,
yourself. It's
absolutely.
it's uh it's one of our big catalysts.
Yeah, but also like one of the real attempts to like connect with someone, like when it works, when
Oh, it's
communication works.
magic.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially in a trusted partnership like a marriage or a long-term relationship where there's like you you are supposed to be naked, what I mean, and unprotected in these relationships. And we'll talk about like, the tragedy of how they go adversarial and
Yeah.
how that's part of the heartbeat, kind of these kinds of things. But why don't we just start off by like, just giving a little introduction to our experience and how it relates to our seeking in the Law of One. I'll go first. So my wife Tasha and I met in college. It was like the second week of freshman year for me, and she had transferred in. She's a year older than me, and we became friends really quick. And I actually remember like in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I went to one of my first fish shows with my girlfriend at the time. And my girlfriend and I stayed at Tasha's parents' house. And it's just kind of funny because like now there's my in-laws,
That is
it's
funny.
weird. Anyway, I started getting into the law of one in college, being exposed to David Wilcock's work, incorporating it. And Tasha was really supportive in me taking a lot of time off work, time that could be spent with her on things that we like. And sometimes going to me with events. I remember the first one we went to, we flew out to Santa Fe for the first time of Global Shift that Scott Mendelker, and I think it was Scott Mendelker and David Wilcock and some other people were doing, maybe John Major Jenkins. And then a little bit later after that, that would have been like right after 9/11, I think. And then in 2002, we went to the Time of Global Shift in Louisville, where I met Carla and Jim. I met Gary Bean and several other people who would later become, important to LL Research. And Tasha was with me then. In fact, we have a really cute photo of like Gary and me and Tasha and one other friend of ours from the early days, Tiffany, which is funny because Gary visited in 2017. He visited Richmond, and Tiffany did too. And we recreated the same picture.
Oh, I've always wanted to do those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
fun.
almost literally 15 years later,
Whoa.
So really weird. But Tasha was supportive at first, and she's always been supportive of me having a spiritual life. But I do find that the concepts in the law of one are not something that I can readily marshal to useful profit in my in my relationship. I have to kind of relate to Tasha in a much more open way, but in a way that doesn't. Well, first of all, it doesn't use like abstruse terms like Ra does. Like nobody. Ra is
I
not.
imagine that's a challenge for you, Jeremy.
Ra is. I don't know if Ra's in a relationship, but I don't think that he would pass marriage counseling the first session without getting a stern talking to. And so it's been kind of interesting because like you ally yourself with this person and you are making your lives a joint project. And so things that are very, very important to you have to, in some sense, in some basic sense, be important and respected by the other party. And it can be difficult to convey that. I think one of the best things that happened with me and Tasha was her finding a kind of a spiritual practice that she really enjoyed and that spoke to her. And then she could kind of see how, like, especially as I started getting into channeling and stuff like that and making weird sounds upstairs, she could kind of see the ritual side of it from her point of view. So she does more witchy like kind of things with like burning sage and stuff like that. But they're meaningful and she keeps up with it. And one of the things, honestly, that I really respect about her is that she keeps it for the majority of the time she keeps it to herself. It's not a sense, I'm not saying that in the sense that I don't want to hear about it. It's not that. It's that she realizes it's for her. I think she realizes that it's her practice. It matters to her and her subjectivity. So the idea that you can like translate this easily is not one that's going to bear fruit all the time. And I kind of feel like maybe she's adopted my approach of, just trying to keep it on the like, just make sure you keep the things that are for you and share what can be shared. Not everything can be shared. I remember there was a guy a couple months ago on like the Telegram Law of One group or something who was like really bugging me about some sort of specific practice or like some sort of specific experience I've had with discarnate entities. And I was just like, no, I don't want to talk about that. That's not for public consumption. That's a
Right.
special, like, I need to keep it sacred to me. I will occasionally talk about with other practitioners and other people who it feels like it's an honorable thing to do. But in the sense of just like showing off the goods, like I don't really care to do that. And so I appreciate that Tasha has her thing that she keeps for her. And in the sense of like conflict and stuff like that, I don't think that it comes up very often, except in how I respond. I think as I've dialed in my seeking more and more, it's easier for me to see when we are just simply talking past each other. And it's easier for me to kind of like just say, hey, can we put a pin in this and come back to it when we're maybe a little bit more ready to listen? And then literally going upstairs and meditating for a little bit. Like there is not, there are very few meditations I've had that felt better than like just sitting with my feelings right after an argument. Because
Yeah.
you can't like debate it. You can't like, you're not letting yourself get away from it or just put it out of your mind. Like you're really just sitting with the affect. You're even letting a lot of like the reasons that you're mad kind of fade away, and you're just kind of sitting with the anger. And it's
Yeah.
such an instructive experience.
Yeah. I have a
I
lot to
think
say
that,
on that topic.
please, I think it's your turn to say.
Okay. Well, do you want me to do quick background?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I have been married for 13 years. It'll be 13 this year. But Perry and I have been together for 21 years. And we have, we had a kind of a wild ride at the beginning with kind of rock and roll lifestyle, using drugs and, not really planning for the future and such and such. And then we kind of straightened our act out the same year that we got married. And then we got married. And it's just wonderful to share my life and my seeking and my spiritual growth with another person in a circle of trust. I we started kind of like getting onto like spiritual topics. We weirdly started with cable access TV here in Minnesota that had like shows about aliens and MUFON conferences and all this stuff, and like we just got into that being a regular part of our consumption and curiosity about these topics, and that ultimately led me to David Wilcock. And Perry and I had watched this show together. I was like, wow, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. And so we then I kind of he's mentioned the law of one, and then I came across the website and started reading the books and reading sessions and of conscious channeling and all these things, and I just kind of ate all of this up. So that was around like circa 2008 or something. And Perry is not like that much of a reader. He is, he was raised Lutheran but really resented it. So is, pretty much kind of anti like formalized religion type of thing. So like he's very more experiential about life and spirituality and totally open for discussion. But he's not much of a reader. So I pretty much read the entire Raw Contact to him aloud because he didn't like to read, but he was interested in discussing it. So I would read passages and we would talk about it. And we have a pretty solid alignment in the spiritual concepts presented by the Confederation, but I'm more of like a nerd, a studier, and he's not so much that, but he's always open for discussion. And he's always been supportive of me trying to meet up with other seekers in my city, or like wanting to talk about it and share different kind of books with other people we know, hosting meditations in our house. And then more recently kind of traveling to with the Other Selves working group for more intensives and discussions. So he's been pretty supportive. And I just, I think it's really great. Like, obviously, with a mated relationship, trust being the most important thing for any intimate relationship. And you have this arena, this realm where you can be yourself. You can talk about weird things that go through your mind or fears and challenges with someone who loves you and is not going to judge you. And that is, I mean, there's always a little bit of, evaluation. We're not completely perfect, of course, but I know that fundamentally I am loved and accepted for who I am with this other person. So it's just a brilliant, special relationship where you can explore these different feelings and thoughts, and then work through all your issues.
Yeah.
And Jeremy was just talking about sitting with your feelings and anger, or meditating after an argument, and that has been kind of a pretty big subject for me over the last year, I suppose, to really kind of dial in what my actual feelings are, because you don't understand. It's a work of a lifetime to know yourself, but feelings and your reactions and relationships, it's so complicated and so intertwined. It can be really like elusive to like what your feelings actually are. And sitting in meditation and evaluating your feelings, even when it's, our impulses for having a bad feeling are, okay, how do I make this feeling go away? How do I stop thinking about this? How do I make it stop? Whatever it is, I just want to not feel this way anymore. And that is like a template of dealing with feelings that is not, great. It's not, it doesn't really serve you. You just kind of push it away, and you don't really fully understand it. And so there's been a couple times where I've had some arguments, and I went upstairs, I meditated, and I really tried to not let these feelings be pushed away, and really tried to understand what the root of these things were. Like, yes, I was mad, but I found out that I was mad because I felt some shame, or I felt like I wasn't worthy, or that basically it came down to self-worth and shame. And then being able to reapproach and revisit that with your partner and talk about your feelings has just been a huge, huge thing for me. Like at any time, like if there's something going on, like if either of us says, okay, I need to talk about some feelings, and there's immediate like, okay, screens are turned off and let's talk about them. There's always a willingness with that with my husband, and I'm so grateful for that. So anyway, there's my rant.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of that. The need to be understood by our partners is kind of where I see the real rub when it comes to the issues in marriage generally, issues in relationships generally, I should say. Just anytime I say marriage, y'all just hear relationship, polyamorous, molecule, whatever. The need to be shown compassion and understanding from your partner, even when they don't agree with you, it's a very interesting thing. It really kind of breaks you open if you don't feel like you can speak openly about things inside of your house, inside of your apartment, inside of your bedroom where your partner is, just as a way, as an exposition to get into this, there is a passage from May 6, 1979. It's Carla channeling Hatan that I think might be a good exposition. Then we can jump into things like communication and stuff like that. This is a little long, but I think I need to read all of it So apologies. I can cut it out stuff if I need to. All right. So this is Hatan. This instrument is concerned as to whether she is responsible for the spiritual growth of her mate. We would like to speak on this subject, for it is fundamental to an understanding of the true process of spiritual growth as we understand it. That which is among your peoples known as attraction or sexual desire, of aesthetic appreciation, depending upon the proclivities of those souls involved, is a technique for placing two people in such a position that they are able to be of service to each other. Their free will is not disturbed by this relationship. However, without this natural attraction of polarity, and they're talking about sexual polarity here, there would be no irresistible reason to sacrifice the pleasures of the moment for a greater or nobler desire to aid another being. Thus, those among your people quite rightly take mates, and thus it is their desire to be of service. However, let us examine the concept of service. How can you be of service to others, my friends? Can you be of service in an orchard by grafting an apple onto a cherry tree, or a pear onto a peach tree, or by pinning the bloom of a tulip to the leaves of a rose? The only garden that you must cultivate is the garden of your own personality. If you have weeded your own plot, if those things which have been given you are being done to the best of your ability, if you are centered in the love of the Creator, then you can give the only service that is worth giving, yourself. You may find this easy to give to others besides your mate, for there's an escape. You will leave friends. You cannot leave family. And your family comes to know you, your weeds as well as your crops, your fruit and flowers. We each have a unique bias. Yes, even we have biases. We have Hatan. And this is why we take mates, as do you. For there are those who are more harmonious to our vibrations than others, those with whom it is well to work out our destinies. But you must remember, my friends, that you cannot change those whom you love. You can only be the best person that you can be. And if your example is an inspiration, then your loved one may change as you desire. You may be seeing quite clearly, but it does not matter. For the free will of your loved one is fundamental to the quality of your relationship. Wow, I'm taking a note on that. Thus, it cannot change. You can only be. In this way only can you be of true spiritual help to your mate or to anyone else. As we said, it is difficult for the most part with one's family. To be, that, my friends, is the essence of difficulty. When you can look at the pain of a misunderstanding and continue to be yourself in the face of it, then you become as a mirror reflecting that which may help your loved one. Speeches, arguments, and inharmonious silences can never be of the help that you can be if you remain yourself. We answer this question because we feel it is central to all relationships in your illusion. It is very active because you breathe, because you move, because all that you do is in motion. You find virtue in motion. You make lists, get things done. You try to communicate with words and actions. But of all those things, your greatest responsibility is to be yourself. Yes, you are responsible for your mate's spiritual growth, for that is a special and privileged contact among two souls and the Creator. No, you may not change in any way the path of your mate, but only love and be. If you can remember this simple instruction, the terrific confusion that besets the most harmonious of relationships at times will vanish. For it is a cliche among your peoples that all are different. Realize only that all are also perfect, and that in seeing your own perfection, you are allowing your mate to be perfect also. With the pressure gone from a relationship, that which is needed can come naturally. Then and only then can you fulfill your spiritual responsibilities. Remember that you are one with all that there is. It is hardest to be one with those to whom you are closest, but it is possible, and it is profitable. Do you have any thoughts on the session I just read?
Being yourself, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, especially the bit where speeches, arguments, and inharmonious silences can never be of the help that you can be if you remain yourself. I mean, that's huge. like we are part of being in a relationship is often it's like there's, I mean, even without being directly adversarial, there's often like a tug of war sometimes. Like sometimes you're campaigning for something with your loved one. You're manipulating, for good or ill to achieve a certain outcome. You have these expectations. And sometimes, so much of our culture puts value on, the speeches and the persuasion and all this stuff, and that sort of orientation also seeps into the relationship, and so there's always that temptation, and sometimes just like sometimes your partner needs that, or you need to let that out, like what you're trying to get your partner to come around to your point of view, and it's all. But if it's done with, if you're being yourself, like throughout some of these little games that we play too, I mean, it's all kind of keeps it more in a balanced configuration where, like, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't really have an example right now, but like, yeah, I don't know. I really think about this, this bit about, being yourself, and that is the best you can be. And then in this mated relationship, you have the most comfortable place to be yourself. I mean, sometimes it can be like when with not a not a mated relationship, but one that's like a friends or whatever, that can have that sort of appeal where it's like, okay, well, I don't have to live in the same house with this person. Yeah. I can try out different parts of me, or like, I'm being myself, but I'm being kind of like a more extravagant version of myself, because I can leave this person and sleep in bed.
Yeah. Or I can
elsewhere,
fudge who I present myself as, because they don't really know me as well. So I can get away with playing a different role. Yeah. But you can't, if you do that in front of your partner, they just kind of laugh at you.
It's true. And like, I've tried to, like, I've had dreams like where I've like lied, or I need to lie, in the dream to my partner. Like, oh, I've cheated on my husband in my dream. And like, oh my God, like it's such a overwhelming, like I had this dream just a couple nights ago where I had cheated on him. I was just like, well, there's no option. I simply cannot hurt him by letting this. Like, I have to figure out a way to lie about this. And just like that whole undertaking is of like lying to my partner about something so in violation of our relationship. It's just like, I even woke up and just like, oh my God, okay, that's not real, like, yeah. And just like, it's, I'm just, again, overtaken by that sensation again. And it's just, yeah. But, that's dreams, they're symbolic. Like,
they're symbolic. Yeah.
So it's not like I've cheated on Perry in my real life, but there's something there. Like,
there's something about that emotion that you needed to feel in relation to your life. Like you know your dreams a lot better than I do, but like, thank you for saying that, because we don't want people to think that we're making confessions here.
Right. No, it's right? Absolutely like, a dream.
I got to tell you guys something. Right, yeah. Jamie's been.
But it's like, like feeling the potency of those emotions in the dream. It's just like, oh, wow. And then you're just so grateful to like wake up and you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, he's right here beside me. Everything's fine.
These are like classic archetypal scenarios that we find our consciousness sort of like dealing with. The being late for an exam dream, right? Like, or, late for class or whatever. Like, I was having those way after college, and they denoted, I think, some sort of urgency for me to get on the path, looking back on it, among other things. Like, that's an interpretation, I don't know. But like, because marriages and relationships are such cauldrons of deep emotion, the stakes are high, right? Like, it's another dang human being, like, who knows you up and down, you know them up and down. Like, it just, there's a lot of richness to mine, for the unconscious mind to mine.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I sometimes feel like those kind of dreams where I'm like I'll have dreams where I'm like out late and I need to come home, but like, oh man, I'm high or I've had something to drink and I don't want to come home in this state because my husband's gonna be upset with me, and like that happens in waking life in like a smaller, like a more like normalized where I'm just out late. I know that he would just prefer that I would be home, or
Yeah.
I may have like a beer or something, but he would prefer that I not drink at all and drive, which is totally reasonable. But these are like normal things in our relationship that like, that in the dream world is like, okay, you betrayed your loved one, because I think deep down I realize that I am, skirting outside what would be acceptable to my partner. And deep down, I'm experiencing those feelings in that dream state. So yeah, it's
Where else are you going to get like deep feelings of shame and,
right.
you know what I mean? And like betrayal from, like, where if it comes from childhood, I feel really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I guess that is the way for some people. Some comments I wanted to make on
Oh,
the
yes.
session we just did. Like, so I think it's important to recognize that from a metaphysical, spiritual evolution point of view, the point of mated relationships is to create opportunities for deeper service than with other yellow ray kind of interactions, right? With acquaintances, with friends, that in your heart that when you come home there is a costume. It might be a very thin costume, maybe, but there is a costume you take off, and you are yourself in a way that other people are not supposed to know. I think that it's very interesting that they talk about, especially in the mated relationship, the key to service is being yourself. So I think those are two things to keep in mind as practical guidance for making good spiritual use of this catalyst, is to understand that it's not by changing who you are in some essential way that you serve your partner. Your partner doesn't necessarily want you to change who they are. They fell in love with the person that you are. So that you got to find a way to serve them from that place. And when you don't, you'll reap the consequences. The thing that I mentioned about, and I think it's also important to point out that they acknowledge how feeling unity, oneness, infinity is more difficult with people who are more intimate with us. It is harder. It's more rewarding, right? Like, spiritual experiences with your partner, like, can't be beat because they exist within this sanctified container that y'all have created. But the other thing I note is that thing about free will and communication. Like, I've been told that sometimes I can steamroll in arguments, and I know, but like, this might be too much information, but Tasha doesn't always have she's dyslexic. She grew up dyslexic, so she doesn't always have a great way of organizing her thoughts in the way that I would prefer. Like, things kind of spill out for her, but she gets it all out there. Whereas, like, for me, I'm trying to trace things together so I can see like the thesis, and I have a bias that I really hate it when people abuse my attention and go on and on and on and don't make room for a give and take. So it tends to be that our biases, like in most relationships, kind of, they're puzzle pieces that fit together, and they're designed to smack together perfectly to create a perfect spark. So one of the things I've been thinking about, especially prompted by this, is I need to take more. It's not just about listening. Like, I need to actively help her, like, get her point across to us. It's not about figuring out what she's trying to say and then blurting it out. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a collective group identity that we have created through our proximity for so long. And this is the thing that I'm talking to. This is the thing that's trying to figure out how it feels. It's not me versus her, it's us. And so
It's a throuple.
yeah, it is.
Like the third entity is the relationship, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it can be tough when you feel strongly, but it's always the lesson with the Confederation and emotions is to feel them and then to like sort of deal with the proximate causes for them, like on separate terms. I feel like that's an interpretation I
Yeah.
have, but the idea is that the feeling is real. The feeling is not a lie. The
Right.
feeling is never a lie. It's always some understanding, usually some intellectual understanding of the facts of the situation that are causing you to misunderstand. But the feeling is totally true. And like this came up on the Discord the other day where somebody was talking about like they just feel like it's a very bleak situation that we're in on third density and how could Ra let this happen. You've heard this before, right? Just
Right.
saying like,
Okay.
yeah, like this I'm going to reject this because I don't like it, which is
Sure.
fine. But he was talking about how much it like triggered him and stuff like that, and I just agreed. There is no, even if I wanted to persuade him, and I definitely don't. What counter argument is there to your feeling? There's none.
Right. No.
That's why
Yeah.
they're so valuable. Is they're such pure emanations from deep within us.
Yeah. And we all like so deeply want to be validated.
Yeah.
Like we're scrambling around in the dark with a tiny little lighter, trying to figure out where to go. And true validation is just, it's pretty hard to come by, especially in this crazy density.
Yeah.
It's, and often, like, especially like things kind of come into, like, the conflict becomes ready to rock, we'll say, when my time of the month. And like, I will, like, it's pretty potent, actually, the transformation that comes over. Just, it's almost like a veiling, if you will, because it's like, it happens without you, like, I have this change, like a werewolf or something, where like all of a sudden, like I'll be like, I'll spoil for a fight or something, but it's ultimately I just like, I have heightened emotions that need to be like acknowledged. And it's so funny too, like there's a tendency for me sometimes to like okay, no, this, I'm going to be mad here. I just
Yeah.
want to, and then it's almost like a power thing where you're like, okay, I'm mad, and I'm going to hold on to this for a little bit and see how much power can build from it before I have what I inevitably need is like an emotional release of sorts, like a
Yeah.
cry or some little outburst or something. And maybe, that's part of me being a woman. And although I've been having this since I was like 15 years old, it still gets a hold of me in a way that I don't fully recognize what's happening. So it's but that always brings, some little fuss into focus, and it's almost like an opportunity to work on it, although it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
No, it's so. This is one of the biggest mysteries of existence, and especially incarnative existence, which is, why do we have to keep track of so many dang details, you know? Like, because that's
A lot
all
of
this
upkeep, a
is.
lot of
It's like,
maintenance.
no, it's like, I want to be loved and I want to love. Okay, so let me talk about all of this nonsense that is putting us in this situation where we erroneously and illusorily feel like there's some problem with that flow of love. You know, like it's, I hate it. I really do struggle with the idea that we have so many useless details that are like filling our head with just psychic pollution. I feel like I'm being
Yeah.
extreme. It's probably that I watch too much TV or something. Like there's probably an easy answer, but
Well, I mean, yeah, we are bombarded on a daily
yeah,
basis, and we can, it's like it can be a total time suck with social media, and there's just too much information out there, honestly, and we have access to too much, maybe, but yeah.
yeah,
I did want to bring it back to. I have a raw quote here I'd like to share.
fantastic.
And again, this is kind of connecting to being in the previous channeling excerpt about being yourself. And so this is from session 4119. And it is: the key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities towards experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. So, the beginning, like the mated relationship, is probably the best place for these unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities. I mean, in a way, it is, and in sometimes it's not, but it is the most secure place to react and
It's where it's
have
most
like an
likely going
honest
to happen.
response.
And it's
Yeah.
most likely going to happen there.
Yeah.
You know, like imagine the old, film trope of a couple arguing, and as it gets more and more heated, somebody blurts out the truth, the
Yeah.
truth about how they feel. Like that's a really crude example of what we're talking about, the way that these intense emotions that come with the issues around relationships, the way that they can dislodge things that we're even lying to ourselves about. It really has to do with that mirroring. And it's precisely because your partner is going to be like the most faithful mirror in your life, likely, that the spontaneous expression of how you're feeling is so useful. In with strangers or acquaintances, like there's not as much charge to give that exploration of the self that we suffer through when we fight. And I wanted to follow up your raw quote with a Kuo quote, which is raw in other guise. So this would be August 29th, 2001. This is Kuo. Responding to a question, but it's a huge excerpt, so I'm going to cut it down quite a bit. All right. So Kuo says, there is that element in that other person that is the face of the creator that allows you to see into the creator through that person. There needs to be something within the choice that must be made, that cannot be denied, that is felt passionately to be sufficient cause of the discomfort, suffering, and pain of surrender to a relationship. Surrender is key there. For any relationship, while it will not change you precisely, will change so much about your experience. It is as though you will have set into motion the wheels of transformation in such a way that they are never under your control in any substance of sense, nor are they in the hands of the other involved in a mated relationship. For that entity, too, will be challenged to so love you as the face of the creator that she can see more of the creator in herself because she has you as her mirror. Certainly, a relationship can be made, a home can be created with any chosen mate. But to move beyond pattern into spontaneous energy, which creates its own patterns, there is the need to find that focus that is worth the sacrifice of the old self, and that inspires the faith and the trust of the self to release the protective layers around the heart, that the self may offer itself, its life, and its service to another. Each in a mated relationship does this, and it is not an I or a she, but a we and a us to which each surrenders, that oversoul or higher self that the two become in union when mated. So there is not simply the self and the other self, but there is that divine union which contains the creator to which both have surrendered. This is the glory of the committed or mated relationship. This is the beginning for great potential for learning and for an expansion of service depending upon that creature that both have become as a we and a us. All right, I'll leave it there. It's a great session in general. Especially that question is responding to a long time LL meditation attendee, and it came from a heartfelt place. And I think that idea of sacrifice adds a new dimension, because this recapitulates a lot of stuff we were talking about, doesn't it, Jamie?
It does, yeah.
But the sacrifice thing is the real added element. This is what takes how tough it is to be in a relationship, right? How much work it is,
Yeah.
and puts it on like directly under the spotlight. It is not, it is about a sacrifice that you are making in many cases of what you want, what you need to be, of how you think your life with this person needs to be. And instead, you are committing it to this joint stock company you've created with the other person, right? Like it's like there's nobody else there. It's just you and her, or you and him. Like this us that's created is abstract. And therefore, it's easy to just see the person. It's easy to just look at the mirror rather than to look at the fact that you are in a bathroom and that this bathroom is setting the context for all of this. You don't look in the mirror in the bathroom the same way that you look in the mirror like when you're heading out the door necessarily. Bad metaphor. I don't know why I went down that road, but the idea is that like the image that you see in the mirror may give you indications of things that are ready to be let go, or conversely, things that are going to be a problem and you're still not ready to let them go. The key here, to my mind, in the same way that that honest expression of one's affect is so important, is this honesty in what you're seeing. Honesty in acknowledging what you see in the other's face. Honesty in acknowledging what you see when you look within yourself. Just trying to get to a place where the work can even be done coherently because you're willing to look at the actual work instead of tell yourself, oh, I don't really need to do that, or it's really that other person that needs to do this work, or, you know, the work is actually this little thing over here and everything else is okay because I'm okay with it. That's how I feel. That's kind of like where I acknowledge my faults in terms of communication with my wife, is that I do have more faculty to organize our mindset, right? The mindset that comes from living and talking together so much. It's created this kind of thought form, let's say. Let's just put it out there, thought form.
Sure.
And so to the extent that that thought form is not being expressed by either of us in a given situation, it's incumbent for us to be understanding, respectful, but helpful in letting that that consolidated self that the marriage represents or the relationship represents, to let that have its expression, to be kind of like a facilitator for that, rather than simply an advocate for our own interests.
Yeah, I definitely have some things that I'm working on here with regard to the we and the us portion of the relationship, because like I am like a social, very social person. Like I will go out and stay out late with friends. I will Perry and I go to an event together. He'll want to leave at 6. I won't want to leave until 9. And like, this has kind of been a dynamic for a lot of our relationship, where I'll be like, oh, well, sure, I'll commit to something. And he'll be like, what? No, what about, what about, like, let's come home early and something. And then I'll be like, oh, we got to leave early because Perry wants to go home or something. Instead of like, I know it's like a silly little example, but like, I know that he would appreciate it if it was we're going to leave at 6:00 tonight, instead of me making like, oh, I would rather do this. And then, but Perry wants to do this, so we're going to do that instead of like, and it's just like a little thing, but it's come up a few times in our relationship because like I like to be out. I like to be social. I'll lose track of time. Perry would just rather be home all the time. He's kind of a homebody. That's who he is. And if I'm scheduling something for us as a couple, like it should be like, oh, we are going to do this and this is the plan and such and such. And if I realize it does upset him if I'm like, oh, well, we're going to have a party at our house and it'll go from 4 to 9 o'clock, but if he actually wanted the party to end at 8 or something, I don't know. It maybe I'm not being very clear, but like he would rather that, you know, we make decisions as a couple instead of like Jamie's idea, you know? So I guess that's kind of convoluted, but like, it's still something that I work on. Like I have my impulse is to be independent. Like, well, I want to do this. This is my thing. This is how I want the thing to go. But I don't always take into account, or I don't like, I feel like my idea is better. So like, if he would just come along with my idea, then he'll see it. But honestly, it should just be about, if we're engaging in something together, it should be about what we both want. And there shouldn't be like a disconnect there. I should be more respectful of Perry's wishes, and we should come to the idea together instead of me kind of have independent thinking or trying to manipulate or something. So
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
And I have kind of like a different like situation that kind of expresses that. So I've been out of work since the beginning of the year looking for work. My wife has her own business doing crafts, and it's been a little like tough to make ends meet, right? So she didn't grow up with a great deal of money and resources. So she has some latent trauma about, you know, poverty and stuff like that. So it's very understandable. And I remember, like, I don't know, it was a week or two ago, she came home and she sat down and she's like, okay, I figured out how we can make all of this work, you know, even if you don't find a job. And she started listing off this whole plan that she had come up with. And I was like, you know, that's really cool. And that I don't really have a lot of objection to that. But wouldn't you, if it were me, wouldn't you want to have a say in this planning rather than me drop it at your feet as a fait accompli? You know, like this idea that like I'm the one who's like going to like figure out how all this works rather than we really offended me. And you know, probably had to do with the fact that, you know, it sucks being unemployed and not contributing. But on the other hand, it's like, I also realized like it wasn't just my feelings of being like left out or being dictated to. It was also that I didn't know how I would play a role in that. It was all taken care of. And like, where do I fit into this? How do I act in tandem with this? Those are the kinds of things that are a lot easier to see when the plan is the result of a conversation rather than somebody working it out. And sometimes it's really good for like, when it got snowy and icy here, we had an outside pipe burst. And like Tasha just planned how it was going to be handled. She came up with a backup plan. Like I helped, but she's the handy one in the household. And I'll be damned if she didn't fix, she cut the pipe, she put a coupling on it.
Wow.
Like she did the whole thing. She is
It is
awesome.
handy.
Yeah, really handy, especially since probably would have had a hard time finding a plumber, And she just kind of handled that on her own and then kind of told me like what she needed. And that's awesome. I love that. There are times when you need a partner to kind of take the lead. So when we went to marriage counseling, one of the things that the counselor said to me that really stuck with me, and I think it's true as a practical reality of these relationships. We don't have to always keep it on raw and hot on, right? Like we can just talk about, Dr. Phil or something, right?
Sure.
But what they said is that, relationships tend to feature a situation perpetually where one partner is in the ditch, right? One partner is struggling more than the other. It's usually going to be one partner, not the other, but it can't always be the same partner.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Do you see
Carrie
what
and
I
I
mean?
have
Like,
that dynamic. It's been a theme pretty much our whole relationship. Like if we're both down, oof,
yeah.
like it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Like how we would deal with it. It's almost yeah.
You
Like
go into survival mode.
yeah.
You're just looking out for yourself. That is what your body is designed to do.
Yeah,
So
one of the earlier, like a piece of knowledge that I've, come to understand about my relationship over the years is like that you have to be humble enough to let your partner make up for where you lack or where you like you have to be, you can't control everything. Sometimes you have to let them take over. And that can be a difficult thing sometimes. Cause like I'm kind of like the loudmouth negotiator of the relationship. I'm calling, I'm making appointments, negotiating payment plans or, like I'm dealing with insurance companies that's my role, like, so if, when it comes to like we got like this random like a class action lawsuit or we're like a debtor, we're like, what is this from? We don't even know what it's from. Could even be the wrong name. And but it's Perry's responsibility since it was to him to deal with it. And I'm just like, oh man, maybe I could email that lawyer and figure this thing out. Like it's just like gotta remember to step back once in a while. And but that is a very potent dynamic when one partner is down or like just being able to it's a sacrifice again of sorts of control or whatever it is, but it is awesome when your partner really takes care of stuff sometimes,
well, that's the kind of thing that you would expect if you were thinking of yourselves as a us. If you think about like, for
Right.
example, like a team at work, like everybody kind of divides up the work and does what, some people, it's the 80-20 Pareto principle, right? Like, yeah, some people are going to do more, some are going to do less, but in the wash, it kind of evens out to everybody's satisfaction. And it's just tough to do it on a team of two, especially
Yeah.
when you're bringing baggage from sometimes decades ago, right? And so like you have all of these patterns set up.
The patterns, the templates, all the habits. Yep.
Let's do a session that talks about the patterns. This would be August 29th, 2001, Kuo via Carla. If this is not a good fit, then I will go elsewhere. These cycles are very stubborn, Kuo says, within the human personality, and are built into that constant pulse of spirit in order that the illusion may be what the illusion is intended to be: a disquieted, confusing, distracting, and ultimately successfully humbling experience that brings one out of oneself and down upon one's knees in many ways, and ready to open the self to that which is desired. For all things that are desired will create the new patterns of change, and change is always difficult. All new choices will seem wrong at a certain point, at many points in a cyclically repeating pattern. What shores up the confidence of one who is moving from the heart is that feeling of being true to the self, right or wrong. And that feeling of being able, if one is wrong, to accept that and move forward, bolstered by the passion that moved the seeker in the first place to make a change so that the self may see into these cycles and yet may still, by following the heart and following desire, locate those precious elements that need to be within the life, be it the job or the people, identifying not by sight, but by the eyes of the heart, not by reason, but by confidence in those memories of desire that the heart speaks. That's awesome. For the Creator wishes each child to fulfill every desire, to ask every question, to knock at all the doors that call to him. It is a mark of spiritual maturity to see the patterns of one's life. It is a mark of even more maturity, spiritually speaking, to look not only for ways to solve the puzzle, but for ways to love and to know the self ever more deeply, and knowing it more deeply, to find ways again to love. Truly, every difficulty can be untangled by persistently turning to those gentle fingers of love that, through time, will untangle every knot and remove every obstacle.
Wow.
It ties a lot of
Good
things
stuff
in.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it would be a good quote, but it actually tied in the knowing yourself and being true to yourself with things I had talked about earlier. And then
Yeah.
just like these patterns and having the maturity to, the patterns are being enacted on some psychological level because they are preferable to some sort of unknown alternative. And it's in that unknown alternative that any growth, any new phase, any new trust can be can be grown, you know?
Yeah, there's like patterns, and these are especially when you're debating something with with your husband or your wife or whatever. And like Perry and I have this sometimes where it'll just it'll almost just be like a difference in the use of language or like semantics, where we're basically saying the same thing but saying it differently with words.
Yeah.
But there's that pattern of like, well, let me explain it this different way so that you understand what I'm saying. And it's almost like a trap of this pattern of like kind of re-explaining the same thing and again, when if you weren't trying to do it with the intellect and you were doing it more with the heart, you'd be like, you would understand that. And often it's not like a true argument. Sometimes it's just like a little factual debate or some perception of what's going on in the world or whatever. And I find that pattern activate sometimes in discussions with my husband where, because, you know, we're different people, we have different perceptions and whatnot. And even though we know each other more than anyone else knows us, it's like, it's funny to see these little patterns activate.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a little example.
And the patterns tend to be about like defense mechanisms a lot of time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Withdrawing, avoiding conflict, or like bringing up like past stuff as a reason to feel the way you do about this particular conflict. It seems to revolve a lot around a sense of justice in these relationships and expectations that are sort of monitored in these relationships so that one can guarantee a just outcome.
Right.
And I just want to say, like straight off the back, like one of the things I've really been thinking about a lot lately is the conundrum of justice in Confederation philosophy. It to me seems like we let karma and the concept of this karma, you know, do a lot of the load bearing in our philosophy when it comes to things turning out for the best. And that is not sufficient. That's not sufficient for anybody to feel like they are an entity of dignity and respect that deserves to be treated fairly, which, news to everyone, every single person deserves that. Every single person deserves to be loved. They deserve to be respected, and they deserve justice. And yet, justice is not some like cosmic law that we can like see acted out from the point of view of our personalities. In fact, I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest issues with this philosophy is that it doesn't really deal with justice. It deals more, if everything is a learning opportunity, then what debt does the universe owe you for having given that, you know? Like from that point of view, there is no such thing as like some sort of like sense of justice to the personality. So I wanted to read another longer segment, and then if it's too long, we'll just cut it out. But like I've been going through especially the early archives, and I've just been finding so much where Carla was able to take Kuo or Hatan or Latui's point and really just give it a turn of phrase that elevates it above anything else I find a lot of the time. Is that okay with you, Jamie?
Yeah. Let's go for
Okay.
it. Justice.
Yeah. So this is October 4th, 1987, Kuo through Carla. And Kuo says, "It is rare in these latter days of your cycle that any two mated entities are together for the first time." Yeah, we're not even bringing up the past life stuff, right? Like we haven't
Right.
even gotten there, and we're an hour in. It's crazy. Often the two are together, one to challenge the other, and the other to challenge the first. For those things which are the most difficult within physical incarnation are indeed the expressing of a clear love energy to the entity closest to one. This has nothing to do in general as a principle with the relative pleasantness or unpleasantness of the personality with whom you are involved. It has to do rather with the dailiness of experience and that great tendency of the personal self to form attachments to the outcome of one's behavior. Yep. It is, if not easy, certainly easier to love the stranger, the acquaintance, or the friend whom one sees only socially, to share with that person all love and all light, than it is to express that full-fruited, open-hearted song of joy to one who has not fulfilled your expectations. Jesus.
Yikes.
Yeah,
That's the heart of the matter right there.
it really is. It really is. So they continue. Now, my friends, we ask you to examine your human personalities. There is within them a strong instinct for justice, for rightness, for fairness, for absolute values. These desires, these hopes, are excellent. The difficulty lies in attempting to apply them in service to self. For it is service to self to wish that others might behave towards you in a certain manner, might give you certain portions of the time, the money, the caring, the touching. How difficult it is to set one's bait completely free and to stand only and eternally as friend and partner within the life experience. How very difficult that challenge feels. We do not negate it for you and tell you it is a small thing. We do not negate it for you and tell you it is a small thing. It is one of the greater lessons of third density to cease in the expectation of any outcome for any action which you may choose to do in your desire to be of service. Think of yourself then as a spiritual being, as the Creator itself, one which does not need others except so that it may be of service to the Creator by means of service to them. Experience the joy in a mated relationship of knowing that entity which is your mate will mirror to you those very things about the self that are out of balance, so that the self may work upon them. There is a harmony within the universe which is absolute. All that you experience and all that you see and all of that which you hear is a portion of a harmonious development of creation, which in every fiber praises, expresses, and manifests the great original thought of love. If you are weary, move in thought to that citadel which has windows to heaven, and gaze beyond the stars at the profound and tumultuous joy which is crystallized in every star, in every piece of the infinite creation, in every piece of consciousness. And know that you are in the process of shaping and faceting and crystallizing your own expression of the infinite Creator, so that your consciousness more and more has a heartbeat of joy and peace. And if that joy and peace flees before the footstep of the dearly beloved mated, I think that's bad punctuation. And if that joy and peace flees before the footstep of the dearly beloved mated one, with which one does not agree, acknowledge the disagreement, smile at the thought of remaining upon the surface, and move away from the here and now of illusion into the far deeper, timeless present of infinite love. 5 seconds within the citadel of that consciousness may indeed create the mind, even upon the surface of things, which may see the true harmony that is the plan of the infinite creator. A plan which incorporates free will at every turn. A plan where the essential and unmovable lessons are there in emotional and mental structure, awaiting the clothing of circumstance, so that if you face a circumstance and are not able to see love within it, you may rest secure and peaceful in the realization that that same circumstance shall come to you again, and it shall be a time of testing. And each time, it matters not whether you win or lose the game of consciousness raising. It matters greatly whether you purely, deeply, lovingly intend so to create love. Those about you may not understand your point of view. It is not necessary that any understand you. Let it be your hope. That kind of flies in the face of what I was saying about the need to be understood. But okay, I'll let Kuo have the final word. Let it be your hope, rather, to gaze upon the situation with the faith and truth in the Creator's plan, in your own plan, and with firm intention to offer to the situation your love, your understanding. For you shall not receive love, and you shall not receive understanding by seeking it, but only by attempting to give it. Wow. We shall, and I'm going to skip over something. I'll read it. We shall be with you in the citadel of the waiting, trusting, loving consciousness. We shall be with you as part of you is in the citadel, and the other doing the ironing, the dishes, the blueprint, the lesson plan, the design, the painting, or whatever occupies the life. Those who serve most effectively are quite simply those who remain persistently and doggedly and joyfully aware that there is a rightness, appropriateness, and wonderful opportunity in your situation right now. You certainly do not know all about why the situation is helpful. That's really important. You certainly do not know all about why the situation is helpful. This is far better learned in meditation. And may we say that we see meditation as a time of moving up into the citadel, and then moving away from the window into the inner room, into the darkness, into the silence, into that which seems nothing, that you may trust and allow the silence and the darkness to teach you, to fill you, to repair you, to nurse, cherish, and comfort you. Then you may, in mind, climb down the tower steps, step out onto your tenanted life experience, gaze at the troublesome mate, the difficult situation, with faith and love anew, and know that you are an ambassador of love and light. Last paragraph. May each of you treat his or her mate as a friend, expecting nothing, offering all, and knowing when that balanced all is sufficient, so that you do not become the martyr, but rather do all things in joy, without reference to any other, but acting as a sovereign, a king or queen of the great kingdom of your consciousness. Thus you shall be a bad tenant no more, but rather exercise great stewardship in your days and nights, moving into whatever streets, whatever alleys, whatever situations your harmonious unfolding plan offers you, yet remaining more and more within the citadel, where a portion of you keeps faithful watch for all humankind. Well, if that doesn't set the stakes, I don't know what does.
Wow. So much to unpack here.
I could have tried to chop it up, but this is the problem with channeling is that everything flows.
Right,
So it makes it really difficult. Raw is a lot easier to excerpt.
Right, yeah, right. Well, okay, let's talk about expectations first. Right, at the beginning, and how to express that full-fruited, open-hearted song of joy to one who has not fulfilled your expectations.
Well, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, one of my favorite quotes of all time is that expectations are the root of all disappointment.
Yep.
And, but it's just kind of how we operate, it's how we hope. It's sometimes how we have faith is through our expectations. And it can be a hard, and it also at the end of that excerpt, it talked about like living in the moment too, which is a very important thing to think about with expectations. But sometimes I've, like just there's so many little instances with expectations within a mated relationship where you you should probably know better, but sometimes you have the expectation of such and such outcome or response to whatever you bring up with your partner. But you have it anyway. But sometimes it's exciting. It gets the blood pumping when there's a little adversarial stuff, or,
Sure.
like sometimes that's a little seductive, and it's not always harmful.
There
Sometimes
is
it's
such a
just,
thing. Such a thing as productive conflict. I believe that very strongly.
Yeah. And so I have like, there are times when I will, I don't know, my husband he's a man of few words, right? He's a very good listener. And there's sometimes I will, sometimes I will just ask him, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be coming home. I'm coming in hot. I'm going to need such and such thing. And he is always so accommodating when I have a request. And it's amazing. But sometimes like there's a more romantic part of me that's just like, well, it should just come naturally. I should not have to ask. I should not have to ask for this
Is that you,
need
Tasha?
to be met. But that that's a daily struggle with myself. But if I simply ask,
Yeah.
it's always so given with love, like. But again, that's just like a part of like letting go of these expectations, because
Yeah.
you're gonna be disappointed, and it's not fair in your partner either. They don't know what you're thinking, like, and there's that weird dynamic where like I said, like the romantic notion of being like, oh, well, I came home and they had a vase of flowers and a bath drawn, and like those are that's just like an example, but you know what I mean, like. Mm-hmm. But having the courage sometimes to ask for what you need, it shouldn't be unromantic to do that, like. So that's something that I've been working on with my relationship. That, like, I want to present something to my husband, and I know how he'll react. He'll immediately say no to begin with, but I need to honor that. And then, and like, I know he'll come around, but like, also like kind of be more honest about what your expectations are, just as as a conversation moment. It can be very, freeing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, there's so much that you said that I resonate with. I don't really feel the need to like
Okay.
tell the Jeremy version of it. I'd rather sort of like get deeper into like, why do we form expectations, right?
Right.
Why do we do this? Why do you think we do this?
Well, we are beings of action, and we put in time and effort, intellectually, physically, emotionally. We put it's quite the expenditure of energy and focus, and we want results, and we want to
Yep.
see them. And often we want results within a very narrow focus of a very narrowly defined set of expectations. And I think that it's hard to get away from that pattern, because it's just kind of like how we run, how we operate, because we are beings of action instead of beings of being.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. There's a Hatan session that I'm writing an essay about that's all about this conundrum of seeking, this paradox of seeking, where you strive towards something, but in order, especially in spiritual seeking, you're striving for something. But they even talk about in communication, you're striving to make a point, and you're gumming up the love by trying to make a point. You're striving for enlightenment, and yet The very fact that you hold it apart from you as something to be pursued creates the distance, right? They say that, like, I'm going to go into this more hopefully this year, but like they say that, attainment in seeking does not involve capturing the thing that you're chasing. It involves becoming the thing that you're chasing. It is a blending. It is a transformation of the self into a new self. And I think Kuo talked in terms of that in an earlier session. Like a lot of what you're sacrificing is this idea of a self that can do anything it wants at any moment without it being a problem for anybody, right? It's also important to look at the fact that marriages are unavoidably contractual.
Sure.
And so contracts are all about being able to delineate expectations. It does not surprise me that expectations attend marriages when they are so formalized, and then it's left up to you to write the bylaws, right? And remember that marriages and even long-term relationships bear a lot of weight in life. Like, I remember when I went to the, I think it was the 2017 or 2018 Coming Home to a New Earth event that LL ran in Asheville. One of the people made a really big, or a point that made a huge impression on me. And she was like, your marriage or your committed relationship has to play so many roles. Your partner has to be your friend. They have to be your confidant, which isn't always the same thing. They have to be your financial partner. They have to be your roommate. They have to be your sexual partner. They have to be your co-parent. They have to be your dating partner. We could go on and on and on talking about all of the ways in which marriages stand in for a great deal of roles that I'm highly surprised capitalism hasn't privatized away from the marriage. I guess it has in some cases, right? And some people have very unintimate, business-like relationships, and that works for them. And we see the value of using these opportunities for breakage between people as also opportunities to heal and become even stronger. But not everybody sees it that way. And for those of us who do see it that way, I think it's very helpful to think about the things that we expect. And I imagine that if you did an inventory in your head, you would have a hard time coming up with it without really thinking back to expectations that you actually had. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but like I have a hard time thinking of past arguments. But like when I do, and when I think about what it was that motivated me to make a stink, it was some expectation that I had that probably, if I look back on it now, is easily like tossed aside or like negotiated, right?
Right.
Like they're not usually these huge things. But there's this idea of like a lingering respect, a lingering energy, or idea about something that hurts you about the other person or that hurts you about the relationship that it brings up. And it can be so tough to mediate that hurt through the structure of a conversation between two people who have to, fill all these roles. Like, oh, if we don't like each other and need some time apart, does that mean I'm not paying the bills anymore? Like all of these things come bundled up in the expectations that are negotiated.
Yeah. It's hard. You can't avoid them.
No, you really
The
can't.
expectations. Yeah. I mean, being honest about them is pretty much the best you can do. That's interesting that you bring up like past arguments and like how they maybe have started, what expectation wasn't met that precipitated in a heated debate or argument or whatever. And that's what's so valuable about really trying to examine your feelings.
Yeah.
It's out like what was that? It was basically one party is hurt. I mean, it may be about paying bills, or I mean, finance is a huge thing,
Oh, yeah.
for relationships to manage. Like I've been working part-time for over a year now, and that hasn't been easy in my relationship. Like,
Yeah.
I know you've gone through some on and off with your job, and
Absolutely.
oh, it is just like, yeah, it's not easy, because like
The financial expectations are some of the most concrete, right? They're the ones that I can't just say, oh, that's a misunderstanding. No, like
right.
bills do need to be paid,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it's not an easy one.
Well, maybe to wrap up, because we've been going a while, I feel like
Sure.
we only scratched the surface, but I
Totally.
don't want to do another scratch. If we need to come back and do another episode on some of the topics we left out, that would be great. And it'd be cool, because maybe we could do more of a survey of these different things rather than this, which is very much, from my heart and from your heart. We can do more of like, let's look at divorce, let's look at abuse situations, right? What does the Confederation have to say about stuff like that, about
Right.
boundaries and all that, right? And so maybe we can get to that. But I wanted to read from this Richmond session that was done 2 years ago. It's Latos on Negotiating the Open Heart, May 4th, 2024. And it has to do with energy work around this kind of negotiation. Since we're talking about this contractual side to it, perhaps some thoughts on negotiating might be helpful. So those of Latos say, when your lower centers are not such a barrier for you to express what you feel, what you think, what you know yourself to be, and they're talking about the lower energy centers, just to be clear, then, my friends, you will find that it will be that much easier to make the space for the other who does not have this experience immediately. For you will be able to model the vulnerability that you seek in the other. It is not a letting down of the entire guard. It is the ability to let a little down. And that starts the true negotiation, the laying down of the armor. And it can happen piece by piece. It need not be a complete surrender all at once. And in fact, you demonstrate more trust when you help your other self slowly, tenderly unravel these knots of energy that represent their distortions. For this is work they must do. But it is also the case that the knots have been tied for very good reasons, not for bad reasons. And you respect them when you respect their distortions and give them space to choose to untie the knot, to choose. And you must respect when they choose not to. And it may seem that the project of finding trust has failed in the moment. This is why you must untie your own knots first, so that you are not dependent upon every negotiation being successful for you to be able to radiate. You allow the other to withdraw and to keep their guard up because you have lowered the stakes. And it is in lowering the stakes of the relationship between two mind-body-spirit complexes that new possibilities can override the desire for protection and defense. It is an art that is carefully and sometimes painfully learned. But have faith in yourselves. Have faith in your Creator. And truly, my brothers and sisters, have faith in the other. For you, however far along the road, however far along on your path you are, did not get there quickly. That is one of the great facets of this illusion, that we all started from the same point. It is not the case in any third density illusion, but especially this one, where so many have come for, shall we say, remedial purposes. I'll leave it there because it's starting to drag on. But the whole idea of negotiation and this more loving take on what it involves, I think, can act as a kind of balance to the contractual expectation laden sides of the relationship. I know it made a big impact on me because negotiation doesn't seem like something that the Confederation should be involved in. They should be involved with simply loving and not having any, back and forth on it. But in third density, I think it is very much that back and forth that builds over time a kind of rapport, a kind of energy that then you can stand on. And then the more concrete things that you're looking for will have place and they will have position in the constellation of your love.
Yeah. Yeah, negotiation is a big part of it. And, you know, you can reveal a lot about yourself too through negotiation.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You kind of
Like, you
have
know,
to put your
like,
cards on the table.
yeah, you have to put your cards on the
You have to
table. And
call.
especially within a trusted relationship, it's like, well, let's just get right down to it. What are my needs here?
Some of the best conversations I've had with my wife under heated circumstances that turned out well were ones where I just admitted that I was lacking trust in her. Like, okay, like, I don't believe you when you say this. Like, that's horrible. That sucks. That's not the way I want things to be. But just stating it to myself and stating it to my partner without any kind of like couching of it in some sort of gripe or anything, but just being like, this is the way it is right now in the weather pattern inside of me, you know? Like,
Right.
then it can be dealt with. Then this is the whole point of Catalyst, as I see it, is that it's taking these things that are inside you, these biases, these balances, and these blockages, and it's making them addressable. It is hard to address the squishy things inside of
It's a
ourselves.
hard thing to say. Those
Yeah.
are hard things to say. Yes.
Yeah, and to make them external doesn't always take the mystery and the confusion out of them, but at least gives you another way to address them. This is something that Monka has been saying to the Richmond Circle for years, is that anytime you fail from your point of view in lovingly relating to something outside of yourself, you can take that same thing within. You are not without avenues of forward progress. You just need to change the venue. And if there are things within yourself that you can't figure out that are blocking you and that seem insoluble, you have every reason to be completely confident that they will be addressed outside of yourself in some costume, right?
Right. That's true.
And in order for us to go out and meet the world and what kind of BS it's going to present to us in a costume, we should probably wrap things up here. I think this has been like, I was worried that we weren't going to be able to string these ideas together, but it's almost too much material, right?
It's a lot. There's so much.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just on this doc that we created with all these lovely quotes and everything. There's so much more to cover. I'm really also interested in this concept of justice as well,
Yeah.
because that
Making a
is
note.
like, you know, it is, and the sense of fairness and rightness and all these things, they are subjective, you know, on an individual level, on a group level, you know, it's quite the topic.
It makes me wonder that old slogan from the streets, no justice, no peace.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like one way of looking at that is that if you don't give us justice, we're going to create the opposite of peace. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But there's also the idea of like, if there's not peace in your life, then in what sense do you have justice? In what sense can you rely upon the arrangement of affairs in your life such that you are being treated fairly if there's not an underlying peace there? Like, if nothing else, you're going to keep messing it up
Yeah.
because you're not peaceful. You're not content. You haven't accepted. So that is a very interesting, and I do really want to get into that. There's a few topics that I have ideas for that I'm really excited to jump in with you and get this podcast out on. Like, every 2 months is absolutely okay with me, but you know, we can always up the ante. I mean, if people would
Sure.
subscribe to the Patreon, no, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
Like and subscribe. No. I never say that because it's just so annoying when I have to listen to podcasts say that.
Mash that like button.
Yep. I guess we'll leave it there. Jamie, thank you
Okay.
so much for speaking with me on this.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll see y'all next time. In the meantime, stay in the love and light.